All right, let's dive in. We're tackling Long Walk to Freedom by Nelson Mandela today.
Ooh, a classic. It's one of those books that's been on my list forever.
Absolutely, it's incredibly powerful.
And it's not just an autobiography, right? It's like a window into history, this huge fight against apartheid in South Africa.
Exactly. And it's all from Mandela's perspective, from a tiny village to a global icon. It's really something.
It's his own journey intertwined with this massive historical movement.
Right, and what I find fascinating is how his early life, his experiences, shaped him into the leader he became.
Yeah, those early influences, you can see how they set the stage for everything that came later.
Absolutely. The book really digs into those formative years.
So it starts with a country childhood in Kwandu, a rural village, and you immediately get this vivid picture of life there.
You can almost feel it, the rolling hills, the traditional Xhosa community.
The rhythm of life, so different from what we're used to.
And that context is so important, because it shaped Mandela's worldview, his values.
It's like the foundation of everything. Exactly. The respect for elders, the tribal traditions, it's all deeply ingrained in him.
He even talks about his mom telling him this story about a traveler whose sight was restored by a magical fish.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful imagery.
And it shows the power of storytelling in that culture, passing down wisdom through generations.
Right. And the importance of community, of those shared narratives.
He also talks about his father, Gabla Henry Mfakaniswa, who was a chief.
That must have had a big impact on him.
But definitely, you'd think growing up with a father in that position would give him a unique perspective on leadership.
For sure. But there's a twist. His father was actually removed from his position by a local magistrate.
Oh, wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he was considered insubordinate to colonial rule.
So Mandela saw his own father, a figure of authority, strip of his power by an outsider.
Imagine the impact that must have had on a young Mandela, seeing that injustice firsthand.
It makes you think, did that plant the seeds of rebellion, that questioning of authority we see later on?
It's definitely a possibility you can draw a line from that early experience to his later activism.
It's fascinating to see those connections.
And then there's the clash of cultures. He's sent to a Western-style school where he gets the name Nelson.
Talk about a world colliding.
It was. This exposure to Western education opened up new possibilities, but also made him very aware of the racial disparities in South Africa.
He saw the inequalities, the injustices, and it must have been a real turning point.
Yeah, you could say that's where the seeds of his activism were sown, in that classroom.
And after his father died, he went to live with Chief Jangantaba Dalindyebo, the regent.
This regent was wealthy, influential, a powerful figure.
So Mandela got this inside look at tribal councils, political dynamics. It was like an apprenticeship for leadership.
Exactly. He saw how the regent navigated complex situations, made decisions, handled power.
It's like all those experiences were preparing him for the bigger stage, even if he didn't realize it at the time.
You can see the threads connecting. It's remarkable.
And then there's this key moment, his circumcision at 16, marking his transition to manhood.
A big step in Xhosa culture.
Instilling values of courage, discipline, responsibility.
Really solidifying his sense of identity.
But then he escapes to Johannesburg with his cousin Justice. They sell oxen to raise money, narrowly avoid arrest.
That's like a real adventure.
Oh, it was. They didn't have the right travel documents. They almost got caught.
They were determined, though, to forge their own path.
And arriving in Johannesburg in the 1940s must have been a shock after rural life.
The size, the energy, the modernity, it was a whole different world.
Mandela describes being awestruck but also troubled by what he saw. The racial and economic divides were so stark.
That contrast must have been jarring, seeing the inequalities laid bare.
He talks about being disturbed by the exploitation of black laborers in the gold mines where he briefly worked.
It's those early jobs that really opened his eyes to the harsh realities.
First at Crown Mines, then as a law firm clerk, he experienced discrimination firsthand.
And even from his white colleagues at the firm, the prejudice was real.
But it seemed to fuel his determination, that desire for change.
He saw the limited opportunities for black Africans, the economic disparities, and it lit a fire in him.
And that brings us to this turning point, the birth of a freedom fighter.
Where his political awareness really explodes.
He becomes active in the African National Congress, the ANC, and this is where we see his thinking evolve.
It's not a simple path. He's grappling with complex ideologies.
He was initially skeptical of communism, wasn't he?
Yes, he questioned how it aligned with African values with his own upbringing.
But he was also influenced by leaders like Anton Lembede and Walter Sisulu, who shaped his understanding of the struggle.
It's fascinating to see those influences at play, how he's absorbing information, forming his own perspective.
It's a journey of constant learning. You can feel it in his writing. It's incredible how Mandela managed to navigate this increasingly dangerous landscape.
It was a time of immense pressure. The government was cracking down on any form of dissent.
And that's where his strategic thinking really comes into play, right? He helped develop the M plan.
Oh yeah, the M plan, that was crucial.
Can you explain what it was and why it was so significant?
Sure, it was essentially a way to decentralize the ANC's operations, making it harder for the government to dismantle them.
So it was about making the organization more resilient.
Exactly. They divided the ANC into smaller, self-sufficient cells, each operating independently but coordinated centrally.
Clever. So even if one cell was compromised, the whole movement wouldn't crumble.
Right, it was a brilliant tactical move, a testament to Mandela's foresight and adaptability.
But even with these efforts, the government's grip tightened, and in 1964, Mandela and other ANC leaders were arrested.
A devastating blow to the movement.
Charged with sabotage, this trial that followed, the Rivonia trial, became a huge international event.
Oh, absolutely. The world was watching.
Mandela used the courtroom as a platform to voice his vision for a free and democratic South Africa.
His speech from the dock is so powerful, it's a must-read.
He articulates his commitment to nonviolent resistance, but also his willingness to fight for freedom by any means necessary.
It was a defiant message, but one that resonated deeply with people around the world.
And the sentence, a life sentence, it's hard to even fathom the weight of that.
Imprisoned for fighting for basic human rights, it's a stark reminder of the injustices of apartheid.
And yet, even facing that, his spirit remained unbroken.
He saw his imprisonment as an extension of the struggle, a chance to further his education, even learn new languages.
He really embraced this time as an opportunity for growth.
Which brings us to Robben Island, the infamous prison where he spent the next 18 years of his life.
A place designed to break people. The stories are chilling.
Hard labor, solitary confinement, psychological torture. It was brutal.
Mandela describes the harsh conditions, the back-breaking work in the lime quarry, the constant surveillance.
But what's remarkable is how they found ways to resist, to hold on to their dignity.
They transformed this place of suffering into a space for learning and growth.
They organized discussions, held classes, shared knowledge. It's incredible.
Mandela became a mentor to younger prisoners, guiding them, supporting them.
That's a testament to his character, his leadership, even in those circumstances.
He never stopped learning, did he? He studied law, Afrikaner history, even learned Afrikaans, the language of his oppressors.
It shows his dedication to self-improvement, his belief in the transformative power of education.
But it wasn't just about books. He actively worked on building relationships, both with fellow prisoners and even some warders.
That's a key element of who he was, his capacity for forgiveness and understanding.
Despite the horrors he endured, he didn't give in to bitterness or hatred.
He believed in dialogue, even with those who held him captive.
And that approach, it had a real impact, didn't it? Some warders even became sympathetic to the cause.
It's a testament to his charisma, his ability to connect with people on a human level.
And as the years passed, Mandela became a global icon, a symbol of resistance against apartheid.
The world rallied behind him. The pressure on the South African government mounted.
And finally, in 1990, after 27 years, he walked free.
What a moment that must have been, the joy, the hope.
It felt like the whole world was celebrating.
It was a victory not just for Mandela, but for a movement, for the millions who fought for freedom and equality.
His release marked the beginning of a new chapter, for him and for South Africa. It's almost hard to believe 27 years, and he comes out not with anger, but with this incredible focus on reconciliation.
It's really extraordinary, isn't it? You'd expect, I don't know, some bitterness maybe.
Right. After everything he went through.
But Mandela, he understood that true liberation required something more. You know, it's not just about tearing down the old system.
It's about rebuilding, creating something new.
Exactly, a shared future. And that takes forgiveness, understanding. It's really remarkable.
And his commitment to a multiracial democracy, that was huge.
Absolutely. He saw that as the only path forward.
And then the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, what a powerful idea.
The TRC, such a unique approach to dealing with the past, with the atrocities of apartheid.
It wasn't about sweeping things under the rug.
No, it was about confronting it head on, but in a way that promoted healing.
Providing a platform for victims to share their stories, for perpetrators to confess.
It's about acknowledging the wrongs, understanding the impact, and working towards a shared future.
And Mandela's role in all of this, it can't be overstated.
He set the tone, with his moral authority, his belief in reconciliation.
That willingness to engage with his former oppressors, it's just incredible.
Leading by example, meeting with them, attending rugby matches, embracing those symbols of white South African culture.
All those gestures, they were about building unity, a shared national identity.
Such a powerful message.
And then, in 1994, he becomes the first democratically elected president of South Africa.
A truly historic moment. The culmination of decades of struggle.
The dawn of a new era.
And his presidency was about more than just symbolism. He took concrete action.
He implemented policies to address the inequalities created by apartheid.
Promoting economic development, ensuring access to basic services for all South Africans.
And the new constitution, considered one of the most progressive in the world.
Guaranteeing equal rights for all citizens, regardless of race, gender, or sexual orientation.
It's a testament to his vision, this commitment to a truly inclusive and democratic society.
Absolutely. Those values of human dignity, equality, freedom for all, enshrined in the very foundation of the nation.
And it's amazing to think all of this was achieved without a full-blown civil war.
The transition to democracy was largely peaceful. That's an incredible feat.
And Mandela's leadership was key.
He was a master negotiator, bringing different groups together, bridging those divides.
Of course, it wasn't easy. He faced immense pressure from all sides.
Those who felt he wasn't moving fast enough, those who feared he was pushing too hard.
A constant balancing act.
But he never wavered in his commitment to building a just and equitable South Africa.
He understood that true liberation meant more than just political freedom.
It required economic and social justice as well.
So he championed initiatives to reduce poverty, improve healthcare, education, promote land reform.
It was a holistic vision, recognizing that true freedom requires tackling inequality on multiple fronts.
And even after stepping down from the presidency in 1999, he continued to be a global voice.
Advocating for peace, human rights, social justice.
He founded the Elders, a group of world leaders working to address some of the world's most pressing problems.
Mandela's legacy, it extends far beyond South Africa.
He's an inspiration showing us what's possible, the power of one person to make a difference.
The impact of resilience, forgiveness, and the enduring possibility of hope, even in the face of immense suffering.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Long Walk to Freedom,
what a journey it's been.
What are your key takeaways? What will you be pondering?
For me, it's that reminder that freedom is not a gift. It's something we have to constantly work for, protect, nurture.
It's an ongoing struggle.
Mandela's life shows us that even the darkest times, hope can flourish and conflicts can be resolved.
Through dialogue, understanding, forgiveness, it's powerful stuff.
It's a call to action for all of us, to stand up for what's right, to fight for equality.
To contribute to a world where everyone has the opportunity to reach their full potential.
Beautifully said.
And on that note, we conclude our deep dive into Long Walk to Freedom.
Until next time.
Keep those pages turning and those minds engaged.